Meeting at 8:30. Welcome, everyone. For the audience here today, the City of Glendora utilizes a hybrid meeting format to allow for participation both in person and virtually. In consideration of others and the business conducted today, please silence your phones and refrain from speaking unless recognized. If you're interested in speaking during public comment, speaker cards are located in the lobby and the rear of the chamber. Please fill out a card and submit it for the recording administration. For those participating via Zoom, please select the raise hand icon in Zoom before the close of the public comment period, and you will recognize and unmute it. Again, this is a public meeting for the community of Glendora. We appreciate and respect your participation here in this meeting. And I request an oral roll call to be conducted.
Thank you. At this time, I'll call an oral roll call for everyone to, and request that each member respond with present when their name is called. Board Member Davis.
Present.
Board Member Jarvis.
Present.
Board Member Snyder. And let the record show Vice Chair Klingler and Chair Nolan are absent today.
Leading it, Board Member Davis.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we're moving to reordering of and additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to the agenda? I don't see anybody wanting to do so. So we're moving to public comment. Have we received any public comments?
I have not received any, and there are nobody on Zoom either.
So at this moment, I'm gonna close public comment period since we didn't receive any. And then now we're gonna move forward to board statement reports. I'm gonna invite from each board member, Board Member Davis, you have a report.
I do not.
Board Member Jarvis,
Nothing to report at this time.
Board Member Snyder, nothing to report at this time. Moving to the director, staff liaison, and attorney statements. I invite the reports from Community Development Director Jeff Hugo and Economic Development and Housing Manager Valerie Velasquez.
Thank you. Good morning. I'll give the updates for Jeff and I. Just to let you guys know that we took the ordinance. If you recall, we came to the bid board and talked about increasing the number of events that would be allowed for businesses in the bid. So we took that to council in December, the first reading. We had the first reading for the change of that ordinance, and the second reading will be this month in January, and then it'll go into effect 30 days thereafter. So there's that update where businesses can start having up to 24 events per year. I'm sorry, is that what it was said? 24 events per year. That's correct. Yes. And then the second update is, if you recall, a while back, we had a public comment that made a request for overseeing additional Friday nights in the village. And so we came back and we discussed that internally. In order to do that, we'd have to go ahead and put together a formal proposal and send that out, do a request for proposal. And we can't just select one individual. We'd have to go out. So that is going to be a little bit more time consuming. So we have not brought that back to you, but there's also the alternative option of, instead of putting together a request for proposal, you guys have an event coordinator. So we can consider including something like that into the budget as we start preparing that. We're going to come back to you in February with the budget for the new year, and we can go ahead and put some money into that budget for increasing events as we move forward, and we can put that and kind of revise the agreement we have with our event coordinator, Megan Kay. Really, it's just a matter of her reaching out and coordinating with entertainment to come into the village to perform. So shouldn't be too much of another complication for her to add into her agreement. So if that's okay with you guys, that's probably the route we're going to go ahead and pursue. All right, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. At this time, we're moving to special items. We have a communications coordinator update. It's my understanding that Megan is on Zoom.
She is, Megan will send you a request to unmute yourself. Can you hear us?
Hi, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
Barely, but yes, we can.
Okay,
Go for it.
very good. So updates from event coordination and communication coordination. Since our last bid meeting in November, we have had the holiday stroll, Small Business Saturday, and Santa in the Village. All events have deemed to be successful again. Obviously, the holiday stroll being our biggest event, co-hosting with the city. Was a great success. Small Business Saturday had a great turnout. We were able to have over 200 people participate in the raffles that we had on site on Small Business Saturday, in addition to live bands and entertainment throughout the afternoon for shoppers and diners alike. And then our Santa in the Village every Saturday in December with carriage rides was a success as well. And then also just wanted to put out on everybody's radar, I think since the last time we spoke in November, we have firmed up a date for the 2024 Wine Walk, which will be Saturday, March 16th. I just sent out a reminder email. We just 3 to 4 weeks ago, reached out to all of our pour stops from last year to get commitments for this year. So applications for that is due this Friday, January 5th. Beyond that, that's all the updates I have.
I have a question. Megan, did we get any feedback from Small Business Saturday from the businesses? Did you hear anything from them, positive or negative?
I didn't necessarily hear feedback positive or negative per se, but I did hear some feedback in terms of what they'd like to see for next year. I know this year when we were originally developing what type of promotional card, discount card, I didn't necessarily quite have exactly what we thought would work best. This year we did do a postcard with all of the discounts. I would say for next year, now that we kind of know what works and what doesn't, we'll be able to notify businesses a little bit sooner and be a little bit more clear on what types of businesses can participate. It was mostly retail. Whereas I think for next year, we can also open it up to services as well. But beyond that, I would say that's what I'd like to improve upon for next year.
That's great. Do you need anything from us? Is there any kind of process to put that in writing or make notes of it for next year?
I think, and also too, I think which was great. And I think I'd like to implement, Crust and Crumble actually had a really good idea where they were actually, once Small Business Saturday had begun that day, they were actually sending customers up to the Small Business Saturday booth so that people knew about the raffle, could get a discount card, all of that. So I would say more things like that are something that I'd like to implement for next year, whereas like we have a little bit more business involvement and promotion. And like I said, day of actually having the businesses send customers up to the booth to get a discount card so that they're actively participating, seeing the prizes, seeing what's available to raffle off, and also just enjoy the entertainment that was up in the bus plaza all afternoon.
Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Megan,
Yes.
well, first of all, Happy New Year. We're all
Happy New Year
excited
to you as
about the
well.
New Year. Then I have a question regarding Valentine's Day. I know we don't have an event and we're not gonna do that.
Right.
I mean, it's too soon and everything, but do we have any sort of campaign or anything coordinating with the marketing team in terms of like social media platforms and things like that to invite and have more of the businesses involved in terms of what promotions are going to be offered, and is there anything of that sort?
Yeah, I can definitely talk with Luis in regards to reaching out to businesses and kind of seeing if there's any promotions they're running for Valentine's Day. I know also we did it last year, and I think we have plans to do it as well for this year. We also did run a Valentine's Day kind of ad in partnership with the Wine Walk, is kind of like a good, like, hey, here are some good date night ideas or good Valentine's Day gifts. And we did promote, I believe, like I said, if I remember correctly, I know we promoted the Wine Walk and any other businesses that were doing a kind of Valentine's Day things. So I would say that is definitely possible, could be definitely put on our radar to be promoted for by the time Valentine's Day rolls around.
Wonderful. You have been fantastic. Thank you so much for your hard work. And if Kathy, do you have any other questions or anything?
I have one other question. Sorry, this is just random, and I can follow up with you after. But do you have an email list of? Do you have any? What email lists do you have?
For myself, I have the email list that was provided to me when I came aboard. I'm updating it as I'm going. I've had communications with some businesses that wasn't, originally wasn't on my email list. So I've just been updating them as I go. If that's something that needs to be shared, I can definitely do so, or even update it as well. At the bottom of the newsletter that I send out each month, I do have a link that directs all businesses to the Google Drive
Got it.
that they can update all of their information for the business, the contact person, the phone number, the email, all of that.
That's great. But it's just businesses, right? Do we, and this question is directed more towards Valerie, but do we have an email list of residents? Do we have like a city email list?
We do not. I know in the past we had been collecting email addresses from people who come to events, or, people who sign up for the Wine Walk and the Chalk Festival. There are lists, but they're probably dated at this point. But we don't regularly maintain that other than specifically for the events.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Megan. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So having no other comments, we're gonna move to the Chamber of Commerce update. We are inviting President Theo Josina to report.
Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. My name is Joe, President, CEO of the Glendora Chamber of Commerce. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. There's a lot of stuff going on in the chamber. We had some employee changes or additions. Have a new business development coordinator named Auburn Haney. She's working to increase our marketing. She's done a lot with our social media already. She's only been there about three and a half weeks. And then events and working on new stuff, workshops, new committees. We're going to start a women-owned business committee for last year, and people have been talking about it and people want it. And so we're going to start something like that. And then we're also starting after hours mixers. We haven't really done those for a while. So look for that. We'll have it on a regular day, probably be third Tuesday, like that. We wanted to stay away from council meetings. And then actually every night there's something going on. So it'll probably be like a third Tuesday. I know that's planning commission meeting, but so yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on with that. Some of the upcoming stuff we have going on. Tomorrow we have our monthly coffee buzz at the chamber. If you all know Ken Salzman, he's the murder mystery guy. Sandsman Productions, now it's Renaissance Murder Mysteries. He's going to be our speaker, kind of talk about his upcoming shows, which it's always an entertaining mixer. Just Ken's fun. And then next Thursday, we have our monthly lunch net. It's going to be down at the 399 Pizza on Arrow Highway, which at that one, we're going to talk about new employment laws. There's a lot of stuff that's happened. It should be Glendora Employment Agency be the one to talk. So either them or me, one of the two, or both. So, so if you want to join us for that. And then we also have an event coming up on the 18th. It's called the State of Our Utilities. You may have seen an ad. It kind of looks like this. What we're doing here, we're bringing all the utilities, gas, power, Edison, the city water, the Metropolitan Water District, to come and talk about your utilities for residential and business. Then we're also going to bring in, there's a program called LIHEAP. I always forget the acronym. Sorry, I got a mess up here. It is LIHEAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistant Program. And there's a couple of organizations. One of them is a Long Beach Community Action Association. They're the ones that represent that or that will offer that program, where it helps with low income families that need help with their utilities. There's different grants available. So we're going to, provide that information for people. And then we're also going to have Glendora Welfare, Glendora, and the Shepherd's Pantry there kind of talk about their services too, because they have services for people too, which both of those organizations regularly help Glendora residents and people in the surrounding area with that kind of work. So we will be recording this. It won't be a live stream, but if you can join us, that would be great. So we could have people in the audience for one, and it's going to be a lot of great information because everybody's utility bills have gone up. They're going to kind of talk about why. There is a reason, and then with the city's new water tiers and stuff, going to bring that back. We had a presentation on that last month too, but this is just going to be all part of that. And then the city, we're also possibly going to have the WaterWise consulting company that working with the city that has programs for businesses to replace things, to help with water and stuff. So, so you can RSVP on our website. There's no cost for it, but if you wouldn't mind RSVPing so we know how many people are coming, it's going to be right here at the Bidwell Forum. Other than that, it's just a lot of stuff going on. You're going to bring out new workshops coming up, on, business coaching, AI for business, and a number of different things that, to help our Glendora businesses thrive and be successful in the year 2024. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Any questions?
Any questions or anything? No?
No, thank you for everything
Okay.
that you do. Happy New Year to you and
Thank you very much. And we're right up the street if you need us.
thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry, Della, I'm being told I can't hear you. Can you bring the mic closer to you?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Joe, and Happy New Year, and we appreciate everything that you do. Right now, we're moving to the consent calendar, and the items on the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion, unless a board member has requested it to be removed for separate discussion. Does anyone wish to comment on item number 4? There's not a request.
Motion approved.
I need a second.
Oh, I moved to second that motion.
Great, Trent. Perfect. So we have a motion made by Board Member Davis, seconded by Jarvis. I'll now conduct an oral roll call vote. Board Member Davis?
Yes.
Board Member Jarvis?
Yes.
Board Member Schneider?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
And now we're moving to member agenda items, the Business Improvement District Assessment, Delinquency and Collection Review. This was requested by Board Member Davis and Board Member Jarvis. I will invite Management Analyst Alicia Singia to report.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a great holiday season with your family and friends. And we are now here this morning to go ahead and talk about bid assessments as it relates to collection and delinquency. So back in July of last year, the board had requested staff look into delinquencies within the bid, as well as a collection of annual assessments. I also wanted to point out before I begin that this was prompted by a financial summary that gave the bids activity through May of 2023. And the reason I bring that up is because throughout this presentation, I will be giving data that reflects the previous fiscal year, 22 through 23, as well as this fiscal year, which is 2023 through 2024. So if at any time anyone does get confused, please make a note and I can address any questions at the end. So last year, staff went ahead and presented the bids fiscal year 2022 and 2023 annual report to City Council, who then approved it on March 23rd. The annual report is required by the state of California, as well as the Glendora Municipal Code, and includes information on the boundaries of the bid, fiscal year budget, expenditure and revenue categories, and assessment amounts, and the methodology for that as well. For the 2022 and 2023 fiscal year, assessment revenue was budgeted at $53,400,000. On June 2nd, 2023, staff then presented the bids monthly financial report through May, which accounted for 92% of the fiscal year at that time. Again, at that time, the bid had collected a little over $32,000, which accounted for 61% of the budgeted revenue, which is significantly less than we were anticipating. And as previously mentioned, this is what prompted this item today. So briefly wanted to remind you of the bid boundaries, which everyone is pretty familiar with. In large part, we're looking at businesses between Foothill, below Bennett, and between Vermont and Vista Bonita, as well as the shopping center across from City Hall and Foothill. Next, just to briefly go over the assessment methodology for the bid, there are three categories. First being primary businesses, which are assessed between $200 and $600. Again, those are primary businesses, and depending on the business category, a business could be assessed that amount. Then we're looking at secondary businesses who are charged $100 and operate at the same location but are subordinate to the primary business. And lastly, those businesses that are on side streets or residential, they are assessed $0. So now moving on to the fiscal year 2023 budget. And looking at this budget, there are very few revenue line items, which you guys are familiar with. The assessments being the largest revenue generating item. This figure is prepared by staff and is budgeted based off of a best case scenario. Therefore, the revenue is budgeted at 100%. So in theory, if everyone pays their assessment, you're looking at that figure there, $53,400. This amount is determined by the number of active businesses, and it does take into account how much each business is assessed for the year. So what we did, we went ahead and looked at all previous years dating back to 2018. And if you look at this chart here, you do see that last year, which is the year that we were looking into, is significantly less than previous year at 61%. We wanted to provide this information just to give you a look that we are aware that last year was an outlying situation, and for some reason, there was a deficit in revenue as it relates to annual assessments. So drilling down a little more on fiscal year 2023 monthly assessments, here's a monthly breakdown of all the assessments that were collected in fiscal year 23. As you can see, the revenue taken in each month does fluctuate. In this particular fiscal year that we're looking in, the bid saw a low end of $1,100 in December of 2022, and I believe a high end in March of 2023 with $4,950 taken in for that month. Bid assessments and business license fees renew and are due at the same time. So being that business licenses renewals are set up on an anniversary date schedule, this is going to cause some months to be much higher than others. So there's not too much consistency. You're going to see a different amount for every month, every year moving forward. Lastly, I did want to point out also that in looking at the snapshot of assessment revenue, we do not see revenue for the month of June, which is the last month of the fiscal year. That's going to take us to fiscal year 2024. So again, switching gears from the previous fiscal year to the current. A payment amount of a little over $5,000 was collected for the month of June, and that was recorded by the city on September 27th. Again, we're looking at the current fiscal year. Had the amount been recorded in fiscal year 23, the actual percentage would have been 70% instead of 61. So you can see that it's a little underrepresented in the previous fiscal year, which causes an inflation for fiscal year 24. With 42% of the fiscal year complete to date, we see that the bid has collected slightly over what was anticipated for this year. So typically would have received a little less than what we see now, but again, taking into account that June 2023 is included in this amount. Also, just wanted to point out too, as mentioned in the previous slide, if you look at November 2023, only $700 was collected. Why that is, again, we're not completely sure. Just wanted to reiterate that assessments are collected based off of an anniversary date, so that's going to be a common theme moving forward. So just wanted to give some figures here for the current fiscal year delinquencies. Currently, there are 122 active bid businesses. At the end of November of last year, 9 businesses had a balance due. Of those 9 businesses, 6 were associated with new businesses. That means they are currently in the process of opening or renewing or could be changing business ownership with HDL, which is the city's third-party vendor that does monitor and collect assessments. And of those 6, 3 were veteran businesses. So again, less than 1% of that amount or the number of delinquencies are going to be businesses that have been in the bid for quite some time. It's a very low percentage. 31 out of 122 businesses are assessed at $600 currently, accounting for a little over $18,000 of total annual revenue for the bid. Just a few numbers for you all to look at, and that is expanded upon in your staff report. So again, staff pretty much determined that there is no one single factor that accounts for the large deficit of last fiscal year, but we can determine that there were quite a few factors that do contribute to the inconsistency of revenue. The first being administrative processing. According to generally accepted accounting principles, after 60 days of the closure of a fiscal year, if the amount is not substantial, the city will go ahead and record in the current fiscal year. So considering it was only $5,000, that's what happened. So again, accounting for administrative processing. Second, as I mentioned, the anniversary date based collection does allow for an inconsistency in collection of revenue. The third being the fact that the bid does have 3 categories of assessments. So you can have 5 businesses in the month of January that are assessed at $600, and maybe February, a majority of your businesses are paying $200 to no assessment. Next would be the business turnover, which has been a theme in the village for quite some time. We have businesses that are coming in and out, and there is a timing issue in terms of when they are set up with HDL and when they obtain their business license. Next would be the payment grace period. So HDL does allow for a 45 to 60 day grace period to go ahead and pay their business license and bid assessment. And then after that, they gradually send correspondence for collection. And then lastly would be the obvious one, is just a complete non-payment. So that pretty much does conclude my report. At this time, staff doesn't have any specific recommendations, and this is going to go ahead and be a receive and file report. So I'll go ahead and turn it over back to the board for discussion.
Thank you, Alicia. Do we have any discussion?
I want a moment to think about it. Do we know if there's a mechanism by which so here's where I'm trying to go with this so the original thing was there's a shortfall. Why is there a shortfall? I think this answers some of those questions. But the second thing is as we put more programs in place, whether it is social media or the event coordinator or small business Saturday, as we do more for small businesses that require participation, we want to make sure that the businesses that participate are up to date on their payment. So going forward, is there a way in the midst of these promotions, or if we were to increase communication with businesses, let's say it's Small Business Saturday and Megan is emailing and saying, okay, give us your discount or your promotion. Let's say that it was Valentine's Day and there was a thing, a newsletter goes out and says, okay, tell us what you're going to do for Valentine's Day and we'll feature you. Is there a way to include a link at the bottom of that that says, like, make sure that you're up to date on your bid assessment, click here. Is there a portal of some kind that as a small business I could click on and just make sure that?
Okay, I'll address the second part because I think we're suggesting something else as well. But the second part is there is a link to HDL that we can provide if that's something that the board chooses to do, where they can go ahead and make a payment to HDL. That's completely up to the board, but that's definitely something that we can go ahead and do and discuss with Megan in terms of putting that on, whether that's the newsletter or marketing material. I would imagine the newsletter would be a more suitable place for something like that. But again, it's up to the board, whatever the board would like to do.
And then is there a list of businesses that are delinquent that can be cross-referenced?
Correct. So that's something that we discussed, and I'll let Jeff and Valerie chime in if they want to. But I think an important thing that we'd want to keep in mind, and the board would want to determine as well and make very clear, just to be consistent and equitable, is to determine what is delinquent. As I mentioned, you can receive a bill and you have 30 days to 45 days to make the payment. So one, what would be considered delinquent? Two, how often would you want us to run a report of that nature? And three, what would the consequence be for a business that doesn't pay? So those are all things to think about. And that's something we could definitely explore and move forward with should the board decide that.
Got it.
I'll just elaborate and say too that what we can do is when we have some of these events and we start to get the informational pieces out, like for Wine Walk and Megan sending out information, we could put something on the bottom that says, please make sure that your business license and assessments are current in order to participate. We can put something small like that on the bottom just to kind of do that. And when we start accepting payments, we can go ahead and cross-check and make sure they're current. But Alicia did have a great point, and that is to say, what is it that you're going to say is delinquent and you wouldn't be qualifying to receive the benefit? Is it, if they're in their 30-day grace period, maybe that's okay. But if they're significantly late, that's something for the bid to kind of instruct us on how to view that.
Yeah, I think that there should be some kind of process in place, and of course it can be very friendly, but just the reminder, okay, hey, you sign up for the Wine Walk. We noticed that you're within 45 days, you're, between 30 and 45 days on your business license and assessment. Would you mind going in and getting that current? That kind of thing. I think, in my own business, if we have clients that are late on website hosting fees and they ask us for additional work, we're able to cross-reference that really easily and say, hey, by the way, we just noticed that, can you make this up to date before we continue to do more work on your, so something like that. Maybe it's between 30 and 45 days, or after 45 days, it's just a reminder. After 45 days, it's hey, if you want to participate, you're going to need to do this.
That's something that we can do as we move through the event season and moving forward to next fiscal year, definitely.
Can staff answer how long DHL has been contracting for the payments for the bid?
I don't have an exact date. I know when I started with Glendora, it was here. I want to say in 2018, 2019 is when we went ahead and subcontracted with HDL.
Okay.
Prior to that, we did it in-house.
Is that something that went through the board?
So
for approval, or?
HDL collects business licensing for the whole city. So that was a council
Okay,
approval.
I see. And also, I don't understand why we're paying a company money. Well, I mean, what is part of their contract? Like, aren't they supposed to be, like, they know who's delinquent? Like, and they have addresses for the businesses on Glendora Avenue. How are we not able to like look and say, I mean, like I can go on the city's website and put in an address and see if the business is up to date on their business license. Like, I don't understand how come we're not monitoring that like more
Correct.
closely.
So bid assessments they're put on their radar when they go ahead and apply for a business license. So if a business does not initiate that process with HDL, bid assessments are not being collected. So that's basically where HDL comes in. So if a business does not set up their business license or does not renew, that's the case. And in terms of keeping up to date and exploring delinquencies, that's considered a discovery service, and that is an additional cost, which is in their agreement with the city. So if that's something that was wanted to be explored, the board could go ahead and do that, as well as a council. So that's an additional service that would have to be paid for, and it is in their contract.
Okay.
So what would be the staff recommendation to be the next step?
Are talking next steps to do discovery through HDL?
Well, do we need to do discovery, or do we just need to have a process in place so that when Megan or
I think we should have a process in place. I think we should go over this every month, like who's for each month that we're having a meeting, like who's delinquent, who's needs to pay their assessment fees.
We have Marie Ricci as a deputy city manager of
Okay.
administrative services.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you.
I just want to add that there are they may be late on their payments, but we collect them every single year. We're currently conducting our audit right now. And so we don't publish our final previous year's number on cash and availability until March of this year. And so you may see revenues increase from adjustments that we make throughout the year as soon as the audit's completed. But we don't have any businesses that are not paid up to date. They may be late in their current year, but not multi-year, not paying their dues, if that
Got
makes
it.
sense.
Yeah, and the business license assessment and the bid assessment, they're not combined though, are they?
They are not combined. They are billed at the same time, and you're not considered up to date until both are paid.
I see. So when we have a $18,000 gap, I think it was like between 53 was projected and it was 38. Do we know that that's because there's $15,000 to $20,000 of assessments that have not been paid, or is that just that was what was projected, but there's fewer businesses, et cetera?
Correct. We
Okay.
project as if there is 100% all throughout the year they are in business.
Got it.
But as businesses come and go, there may be months and gaps where there's no one there. So we assume that there was going to be revenue there, but it's not. And so we just make those adjustments. Also, when there is a deficit over all the years that the bid has been in place, there's been a cash reserve building up as well. And so I believe the amount is over $100,000. And so having that reserve is for these rainy days where you don't have 100% occupancy in the businesses doing in the village.
And then also it has to do with the anniversary, as Alicia was saying, right? Like if my anniversary is like February and then somebody else's it's like December, you cannot, like it's really,
Correct.
that's another factor. So
Correct. We do our best to make those projections. And I think that when everything comes down and we factor at the end of the year, complete the financials and then do our previous year adjustments, it all evens itself out.
Okay.
thank you so much. Any other comments?
So the bid's revenue is not in trouble.
Oh, that's not the point. Like that's not the point I was trying to make. And if people are delinquent, if they are delinquent, they shouldn't be able to participate. Like-
I think that's the point that was the original
But,
point
I
that
mean,
I was making. as
Not
well.
even the 30-day grace period. If they haven't paid their assessment, they don't participate in whatever event is currently.
I mean, legally, they have 30 days, 30 to 45 days to
Well-
pay their bill. At the end of November, there were only 9 businesses with a balance due, and we don't know what point during that grace period they were in, but that was 9 businesses for
Some-
that period.
Some of which were new applications. So I think to address your question, if participation is what you're primarily worried about, again, if we're talking delinquencies, as Marie said, they do have a grace period and most businesses, if not all, do pay up. There wasn't any 1 or even 2 businesses that were severely delinquent. So if we're
Okay.
talking about participation and just receiving the amenities that are included with the bid assessment,
Right.
I think what we can go ahead and do is as we have events that require participation or where businesses are allowed on the street or receive a bag of candy at Halloween and things of that nature, we can go ahead and look at them as at a case-by-case basis, if that's what we're primarily concerned about. And as Kathy mentioned, if you're delinquent, you know, that's something again for the board to decide what delinquent is. But I think that would probably be the most feasible course of action at this time moving forward. That's something for the bid to discuss, so.
Yeah, but also like if you don't pay your license, there's you they do send you notices and everything, so you have to be current in order to pay taxes and everything else. So it's not just for the candy or for participating, you know, in the event. So I don't know why we have to go the extra mile if there's already in place something through the license per se. Does that make sense?
There is, and I think there's one slide to kind of look at, the one that had the list of assessments for the past, for this one, no, the one that had the cumulative. There was one. Yes, this one. So at least looking at this since 2018, there's a couple of years where we fell short of the budget amount. And you know, considering all of the different factors that could go into not meeting your budget, it could be some non-payment, but it seems based on the data that we found that that's a very small percentage, and ultimately everybody does pay up, or it's possible they might close down before they pay, or it has to do when it's collected. But I think when in listening to Marie and getting this information, when it's trued up, so to speak, over the last, at least since 2018, we're pretty close to 100% of our budget. We might be actually, we might want to look at, revisit the budget a little bit more closely, and maybe we're overestimating the collection. Maybe this could be partially a budgeting area. We have a couple years, and maybe 23 will change. You know, when the audit's completed, it might be closer to the budgeted amount. But anywhere between 90 and 100% to me should be within the ballpark of getting 100% compliance. And I don't think that, it doesn't seem that non-payment is a major issue. And I think we looked at also citywide, we have a pretty high percentage of people who do pay their business license tax. I think it's also over 90% that's current. So that's pretty good compliance overall.
So when we look at the difference between 22 and 23, I mean, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
But then does that have to do with all the businesses that have closed?
Did that many businesses close? That would be, you know, that would be over 10, 12, 15 businesses at $600 that would be gone. That doesn't seem
Yeah.
right.
They have been.
And our shortfall this year is lower than COVID and the year after. Those are the 2 other lowest when, you know, we weren't even having events. We weren't, you know, we were having more businesses close. So
It seems that the most important thing here is just to keep an eye on this, and also to remind businesses as we do events, as we do more things, and we spend more money, just to make sure that they're current.
Yeah, and I think as Alicia said, we can do that as we're doing events. We have, our 5 or so major events during the year and can check for the participants.
Okay.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I still don't understand how, like, the assessment, like, you can pay your license without the assessment. Could every time I, renew my business license, it's kind of like a all-in thing. How would you go about doing that? Like,
Actually send partial payments to us.
oh, I see.
So we'll get a partial payment or they can't afford to pay it. So they call us and let us know they want a payment plan or things like that. So we try to be as accommodating as possible. There are penalties associated with that as well that are embedded in our municipal code. So although they may be late, they're getting 10% penalties every single month that they're late as well. And so there's an incentive to pay as soon as you can. That's why we say every year, everybody pretty much pays up their full amount. But again, like Jeff said, if a business closes before their annual up is due and it's in that fiscal year, then we're going to lose that revenue too. So those gaps of months where there's no business there's that shortage as well. But I think that also because our annual audited financials is not completed yet, it's completed every March, that might adjust it as well. We
Okay.
can also do an audit of the number of businesses. We just pulled information for the last 3 years. So we could tell you how many businesses in each of those years was open and paid over every single year and which ones have closed to kind of show you the fluctuation and what happened over the years.
Okay, that might be helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is the staff recommendation to move forward with this?
Just to receive and file the report.
I make a motion to receive and file the report.
Second.
So we have it by Snyder. Davis, I'll open up for the vote. So Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Jarvis,
Yes.
Board Member Snyder,
Yes.
motion carries 3-0.
Okay, this was a little bit longer. Please correct me if I'm wrong. We're moving to new business. Business Improvement District Advisory Board, fiscal year 2023-2024 financial reports through November 30th, 2023, and bid expenditures for fiscal year 2023 to 2024 year to date. We invite management analyst Alicia, you're back again, to report, please.
Okay, so sticking to the theme of finances, we are moving on to the summary of financial activity for the bid through November 30th of 2023. And that does constitute for 42% of the fiscal year complete, as I mentioned previously. So just to go over revenues really quickly, I believe the last time that we met, this was accounted for, and I'm speaking about the Halloween walk. The revenue taken in was a little less than $2,000. I also wanted to point out, this is a stagnant column that never changes every month, but there was an administrative oversight on this line item for the wine walk. The adopted budget, I believe in previous months, was listed at $62,000, which actually reflects the actual gross revenue that was taken in last fiscal year. So we went ahead and changed it to $40,000, which is what the board adopted in the budget. So I just wanted to point that out. Moving on to expenditures, the first few expenditure line items haven't changed substantially. That's going to include marketing, miscellaneous items, and landscaping. The last time the board met, Halloween walk expenditures were not reflected on the summary report. So that did go over budget. That is typically offset by the number of sponsorships that is taken in. And I believe also last fiscal year, we did do the bid went ahead and adopted a $500 increase on the budget. We did not do that this last year, which is also going to account for the high overage in that amount. Second is the holiday stroll, typically stays within budget. I know we discussed last time we met in November that was going to go up substantially. One, because of the extra December, the extra Saturday in December, and then also just the inflating cost on the carriages. So that's what's going to account for the overage. Overall, the bid is looking fiscally healthy. I know Marie mentioned a $100,000 cash line item. We're actually looking at a little over $180,000 in available cash for the bid. So while assessments were an issue, as we mentioned in the last item, the bid is continues to do very well. So this is going to be a receive and file report.
Thank you, Alicia. Do we have any comments?
If we wanted to increase the budget for certain events, could we do that? Could we make a motion now or?
I believe you can make a motion now, and that would be pretty timely considering we're going to start working on the budget for this next fiscal year. I believe we're going to be bringing that to the board next month. So if there is something that you'd like to increase, absolutely. you can go
Yeah,
ahead and do that.
because I was under the assumption when we provided the extra $500 for the Halloween walk, that would be something like we were increasing the budget for $500 every year. So we shouldn't have technically gone over budget this past year if we had, had that extra $500. But yeah, the holiday stroll as well. I know increased expenses are coming up and we should increase the budget for the holiday stroll as well.
And the bid did do a couple of things in their, well, one major thing in their current budget. They adopted, what was the large miscellaneous line item?
$50,000.
$50,000. So, we can make adjustments to, balance the line item budgets and draw on that miscellaneous line item budget amount. Also, probably, I think, because in terms of making a motion to make any budget adjustments outside of interline item transfers, we should probably wait until we've agendized the budget for discussion, and that'd be the appropriate time to do it, which is probably coming up in February. So we're going to be talking about the budget for the upcoming fiscal year in the next meeting. In the meantime, if we need to make any adjustments within the current year's budget, we have plenty of leeway to do that with the $50,000 line item.
I think the thing that we previously discussed about the Halloween walk in particular, perhaps also the holiday stroll, was bathrooms and portable bathrooms. So making sure that we have money in the budget for that would be wise as well.
So I guess I'll move to approve the fiscal year
Second.
financial report.
Perfect. So we have a motion made by Jarvis, seconded by Davis. We'll now open up so you guys can go ahead and vote and conduct an oral roll call vote. Board Member Davis?
Yes.
Board Member Jarvis?
Yes.
Board Member Snyder?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Now we're going to recap the holiday stroll and Santa in the Village events. We invite management analyst Alicia to report.
This is the last time you're going to be hearing from me this morning. So we're going to go and just recap on the holiday stroll and Santa in the Village events. All very familiar items. The holiday stroll was held on Friday, November 17th. Very successful, very common and habitual, amenities at that event. There was a tree lighting, Santa, carolers, and individual businesses did have goodies and festivities at their individual businesses. And that was followed by the Santa in the Village events. Again, there were 4 Saturdays in December in which the bid went ahead and hosted Santa. And there were carriage rides for 3 of the 4 Saturdays, I believe. And overall, very successful events. We did have some feedback from community members and residents and businesses in regard to the bathroom situation, which Board Member Davis did bring up. That it would be beneficial to the event and the community if there was an additional portable restroom, one at both ends of the streets to just accommodate for all of the people at the event. So that's definitely something that the board can consider to add to the budget. As we mentioned, it did go over this last year, so that would definitely put the budget over for this line item over significantly. A second would be there were hot dog vendors that were present at the event. I know in the past there have been street vendors at the events here and there. There were 2 that we were notified about. So that is something that we can address later. It was not something that we were accounting for, obviously, prior to the event. So a step that staff can go and take to prevent that from happening at the next event is to go ahead and work with PD to make sure that there is someone on site to go ahead and ask for those individuals to leave if they are not on the special event permit, which is submitted to the city accounting for everyone that's going to be at the event. The other side of that is if the board wants to go ahead and allow street vendors, which again, that's completely up to the board. That's something that we can bring back and discuss at the next board meeting. So this is again also a receive and file, and I'll turn over to the board for discussion.
Any comments for discussion?
I mean, we have a police presence there every year for the stroll. Why don't they, or why haven't we been enforcing it? Because I mean, we've had street vendors coming in every year to sell stuff. Like, I mean, it now, because they've gotten away with it for so long, like more and more people are starting to do it. Why, I mean, have we not instructed the police department to do that before? Like,
So to my knowledge, and again, I'll let Jeff and Valerie chime in if they want, I believe that PD is notified and requested to be on site for safety and to keep the closure of this, the street, like I said, safe and contained. To my knowledge, I don't believe we've ever had a single individual assigned to look for people in the street. And again, that's not something I think that we'd want just someone to do, you know, for the safety of the person who's asking someone to leave and the safety of the people around the situation. So again, moving forward, we would have to explicitly tell PD to go ahead and assign a single person to go ahead and monitor street vendors in the street.
Yeah, and I think it's like Alicia said, it's not something that we've specifically planned for when it comes to holding the events. It's more when it comes to the security of the event, it has to do with, you know, making sure that the traffic, you know, barriers are safe and people are generally safe within the boundaries of the event itself. But it's something that we can start to plan for in the future if it's becoming, you know, a larger problem from the board's perspective, you know, impacting the event.
Yeah, I do think personally that it affects all of us. We were talking about assessments, we were talking about charging people, you know, like to pay their dues and everything. And yet we have people that are coming that are not paying, not even dues, are not part of the event. They are not safe for the event per se. They are taking away business from the restaurants, and they are not safe in any way, shape, or form. I know they are everywhere. Like if you go to a football game, I mean, SoFi Stadium cannot even control it. I do understand that part. But I feel terribly disappointed because I personally approached police officers and I requested, you know, if they could do something. And I was told that some members of the council were notified and there was nothing that they could do at the time. And what I was told was like they needed bigger shoes to get the order to have them removed. So I go like, well, my heels are not enough. Like I'm part of the business improvement district. We are putting this event together. How come is it like, I think this is a very minor incident. I mean, I'm not going to fight hot dogs because I do love hot dogs, but what is going to happen in the case of having a bigger problem and who is responsible? It's kind of like we're just passing the ball here and there and nobody's taking action. And that's very, I'm worried about this because the amount of people that we get for these events, like the families that come to these events and everything, I feel like we need to make sure that there's safety, not about the hot dog per se, but in general, what are the actions, what are the things that are in place? So how's the chain of command and who do we need to talk to? Because at that moment, I felt like even as a bid board member, I had zero authority to, you know, ask for like, you know, a business license or something to have them removed. And there were no two. I have pictures and there were more than 12 people doing it. And so, I mean, let's just call things the way they are. And then what can we do to prevent these from future events, especially coming the wine walk and everything? Because obviously the word is out. People now know that we're doing all these events. And I can go on and on and on with all these vendor outside, you know, on the streets without permits and without proper conditions, talking from the health issue to restrooms to everything. They're collecting money with one hand, serving you the hot dog with the other hand, and it's just how do we move forward with this?
So what I was going to say is we will be meeting with PD before some of the larger events to address this, but also, as Alicia had mentioned, one of the other items was for you to bring this back to another meeting to discuss whether or not we are allowing or making a process for vendors to be a part of this. And while you may not want that because they're not paying an assessment, we can have it such that the fee to participate is greater than an assessment. You know, the largest assessment right now is $600. So if you say a vendor can be a part of this event, but the fee for the event, the one-day event, is $600 or $800 or whatever the board wants to decide it to be, you can have that. And in the process of them applying, we're going to also make sure that they have their licenses that are required. We're going to make sure that, you know, there's the, Department of Health permit that they're going to have. They're going to have to go through the city, make sure they have their license with us for the day. So we are going to be able to make sure that they're complying with all the regulations. And at least then you're making sure that there's a safety measure that we're overseeing as opposed to people just showing up. And we can also say, you know, we've made a process available for you to be here. You did not follow that process, so we're going to have to ask you to leave. And you have some measures in place.
And I think that also goes where it gets very confusing at these events too, as to who is acceptable and who is not. You have people selling food. There's always people just even setting up tables and other displays and things like that in the right of way.
They're selling, bubbles, they're selling lightsabers, they're selling all kinds of stuff. as well.
But it's even the businesses themselves. I mean, you have, in many cases, I think there are also businesses setting up things within the confines of the event that were not sanctioned by the event manager or coordinator, or, so it's more complicated than just, saying, okay, there's a hot dog vendor or a lightsaber vendor, we're going to say they can't be there. Well, what about the business who is put up their own DJ booth and is selling jewelry in front of their store and things like that? Are we going to allow those types of things? So I think it's a little bit broader discussion, but it is something that I think it's probably appropriate to address during the planning of the event. Because that way, the way I see it happening is that if there's anybody that's going to sort of instruct some enforcement, there has to be some type of authority or event manager in place. And when the event happens, it's like if so-and-so isn't, or whoever is not allowed to be there, then the enforcement has to take direction from whoever that person or persons are. I think, and again, I think a lot of these things just come down to the fact that they have not been planned for. That really, up until the last few years, I mean, there always seemed like businesses and maybe a few others that would set up tables and things and be doing a variety of things. But now it's expanded to people selling food and other things. And so I think it's become a bigger issue in the last 3 years than it was before that, although it's always been somewhat of an issue.
I think we should probably make a motion to add this to the agenda for next month to talk about it, have a little bit more time to discuss it, and put a formal plan in place as to what's allowed and what's not. Because, to Jeff's point, we don't want to stop Village Eatery from putting a table out and selling sandwiches, because that's that's within what they should be able to do. We do want to stop outside vendors from coming in, and we do want to stop, like at the the Halloween walk, an outside business who was friends with a business on Glendora Ave had a table set up. So we just need to put the rules in place, and then have the process for how it's going to be monitored and enforced.
Yeah, I agree, because most of us, I mean, in my experience, we hire, for example, in my case, I hired a photo booth and everything, but I was not charging people. I paid for that myself, plus the assessment, plus the sponsorship and everything. And then it's like, we're all incurring in all these expenses and everything to bring more people to the event. But then other people that are not even part of the the village are profiting out of what we are doing, out of the money that we're investing into this.
That's the thing that we need to put a plan in place for.
I just
Uh,
wanted to get some clarity too, just to kind of piggyback off of what Jeff and Valerie mentioned. There is the city does have a process in which we do behind the scenes, which the board doesn't hear about, and that's a special event permit process where, as Jeff mentioned, it's extensive planning and all departments that are involved within the city are notified. And again, that is just to prevent any day of changes or, any change in direction that may occur just for safety and confusion. So with that being said, when the board brings us back, whatever you guys decide to do or you would like to discuss, is this going to be for all events or for the holiday stroll in particular? Just some things to think about, because that's how we'll go ahead and move forward. Hypothetically, if we're talking about street vendors, about including that in this special event permit, and just to have some consistency. So something for the board to think about moving forward when we bring this back.
Okay, so I'd like to move to add this as an agenda item for February.
I second.
Or any opposed? Seeing none, I'll be on for the next one.
And do we need a motion to file and receive this report?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I move to file and receive.
Oh.
Let me fix that. Oops,
Sorry.
that's okay. And then,
I second.
okay, I'll conduct an oral roll call vote. Board Member Davis,
Yes.
Board Member Jarvis,
Yes.
Board Member Snyder.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
We're moving to board staff closing comments. I invite board members and staff to give any closing comments at this time. Board Member Davis?
I don't have anything. I think we've covered it all.
Board Member Jarvis?
Well, I look forward to our 2024 year and hopefully it's going to be a good year for us event wise and promotion wise. And we're like moving in a positive direction, I think, and getting things kind of nailed down and more regulated so we know what's going on. It's nice to have our regular, well, like finally have like a consistent board as well. So this is nice.
Can I add one more thing? Can I add something to the agenda for next month as well?
You get a second.
Okay.
Oh,
Right. Well, yeah. Robert's Rules of Order jokes. Got it. I'd like to just talk a little bit more about email lists and communication with businesses and with the general public, and talk about putting a plan in place with Megan and Louise to try and develop a bigger email list so that we can send out updates, not just via social media, but to everybody for promotions.
Do we have a second?
I do have, I second.
Any objections? Seeing none?
Okay, my final comment is like, thank you everyone for everything you've done for the past year. Looking forward for a very successful 2024. Just remember, support all businesses coming with Valentine's Day. That's going to be huge for all of us. We have new businesses in the village coming, businesses selling and then taking over by other businesses that are already established here. So it's exciting to see how we are growing and evolving. And thank you all for your support. Is there any comments from staff?
No, I think we're done. Thank you and Happy New Year to you all as well.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned at 9:39 a.m.